Hey boys and girls, Mr. Giomini. I want to come to you with a couple questions from the Chapter 7 Pretest that you may want to review as you prepare for the assessment. Let's take a look at this. Was question 13, front side towards the bottom of the second column. And again, very important with this assessment to really understand what the question's asking you. So if I take a look at this first one, it says classify triangle ABC according to its sides and angles. Now I know sides, it could be scalene because none of them are congruent. It could be isosceles because at least two of the sides are congruent, or it could be equilateral because all three sides are congruent. Now we also have that's sides. Now we also have angles. Well, we know we have an acute triangle where all the angles are less than 90. My pen's acting up here. We also have a right where one of the angles, only one, is a right angle. And we have obtuse. Now remember, obtuse is because there's only one obtuse angle. Taking a look at this. Now I'm going to trace over triangle A, B, C. First thing I notice is, if I'm talking about sides, 6.5, 6.5. Now this is 3.25, 3.25. Now 3.25 plus 3.25 gives me 6.5. So all three sides are 6.5 inches long. That means it's equilateral. So I'll write equilateral here. Now my next one will be according to angles. Now if I'm looking at angles, I notice that these two are 60. If these two are both 60, if I have 180, 60 and 60 is 120. That means all three angles are 180 altogether. So if all three are 180, these two are 60, making 120. That means the last one's 60 as well. So that means it's a acute. So I will do equilateral acute. Now next question, focusing in on the same illustration, but I'm going to analyze a different triangle. So I'm going to erase this. And again, you can do this on your assessment. You can kind of trace over. And this always helps me to really hone into what I'm looking at. It says classify triangle ADC according to its sides and angles. Now I'm looking at triangle ADC. So ADC, that's this one right here. Again, I'm focusing in on sides and angles. Now I have this written over here according to my last question. So it's either scalene, isosceles, equilateral. Now this side's 6.5, this side's 3.25. I don't know what the measure of this side is. Now, based on that, I'm just going to assume that all three sides are not congruent. So I'm going to go with this is a scalene triangle. And we'll learn more about that in the next chapter. We talk about Pythagorean theorem to really prove that. And it's scalene. Now let's look at the angles. This is acute. We know this is 60. Now I see that little square here. That square tells me that's a right angle. So that would be 90 degrees. Well, if I just have one right angle, that means the entire triangle is a right triangle. So that's a scalene right triangle. Okay? If I look at the next one here now, it says find the measure of the missing angle in figure 1. Well, here's figure 1. I see that it has 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 sides. Now a 5-sided figure is a pentagon. Remember what I could do here is I could say how many sides it has, which is 5. Subtract 2 from it because those are those two adjacent sides that I cannot make diagonals to non-adjacent, and times that by 1/8. So again, taking a look, and I'll kind of explain this a little again. Here's my vertice. Remember, non-adjacent diagonals. So there's 1, 2, and that makes 1, 2, 3 triangles. So I have 5 minus 2 gives me 3. 3 times 180, that'll give me 540. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine these angles that I already have. I have a 100-degree angle. This square here, that denotes a 90-degree angle. I have a 148-degree angle, and I have a 138-degree angle. Well, that's a lot of angles to add up. So let's see here. Did we say it's a 0? Let's make some better numbers here, Mr. Giomini. 8 and 8, that gives me 16. I'm going to go with 7, or 4 and 3 is 7, plus 1 is 8, plus 9 I think gives me, what is that, 8 plus 9, that gives me 17. 1, 2, 3, and 4, that gives me 476. Now that's how many degrees I have right now, but I have to find this missing one. Now I can tell right now this is an acute angle, so it must be less than 90. So when I do my subtraction over here, I should make sure that my answer is less than 90. That gives me 10. To make that a 10, I had to borrow 10 from here, so this really becomes 3, but really it's 30. And to make that, I had to borrow the 100 from here, so that makes that, I'm going to dump that 100 over here to give that 30. I have 10 minus 6. That gives me 4. This becomes 130, really, minus 70. That gives me 60. So this missing angle here would be 64 degrees. And finally, this last one. Very similar process to this one. I'm going to identify all the vertices, which I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, which makes sense. It's an octagon. Octa meaning 8. 8 sides, also 8 vertices. Now I'm going to draw non-adjacent diagonals. Remember, adjacent is right next to it. So there's my non-adjacent diagonals. Now, once I've done this, I've noticed I've split this octagon into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We know that in each triangle there's 180 degrees, so 180 times 6. That's 0, that is 48. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1,080 degrees. So 1,080 degrees with my answer. Now, also, I can go back to this and use this algorithm that we talked about. But now, because I have 8 sides, the n would be 8. N being how many sides there are in that polygon. So n, or 8 now, minus the 2 times the 180. I could see I still end up with the 6 times the 180. All right, use this to help prepare for the post-test this coming Friday. Take care. Bye.